Mr. Sereph looked at the man like he might be insane. This was what he got for moving to this backwater. When you dealt with city people, you got writing talent, debate skills, or culinary expertise. When you came out to the sticks, because you were afraid of supernatural entities that could hurt the people you liked, then you got, well, this. Instead of sitting in his office, Mr. Sereph was now getting pig crap on his boots as he looked at what was likely a fine specimen of porcine persuasion, but just looked to him like a muddy pig. And you say that, He looked at Mr. Manderley, the oaf in the overalls, who was standing barefoot in the stall like his toes weren't squelching and God only knew what. "Wilbur," he said proudly. "Right. You say that Wilbur has a talent for dancing." "Yes, sir," the man said. "You ever been to a state fair?" "Sadly, no," Mr. Sereph said, with a smile that didn't seem quite genuine. When the call came in that morning, Lucifer had offered to go in person. He had spoken to the man for nearly 30 minutes before agreeing to a home visit, and he'd seemed gleeful when he hung up the phone. He had grimaced when he checked his watch, though, saying that he'd made lunch plans with Juliet, and he didn't want to break them. When Mr. Sereph had offered to go instead, Lucifer had smiled and shaken his head. "These are down-home people, boss. I grew up with these kinds of people, and I know what they expect. They want to have a little coffee on the porch, talk about the weather, talk about how the high school team is doing this year, talk about the storm of '97 or some such thing, and then they want to get down to business. You're a little too brusque for these sort of folks. They'll peg you as a city slicker from the jump." Mr. Sereph wanted to be offended, but the boy's analysis was correct in many ways. Lucifer Marvelous Jones had been accused of many things, but poor judgment was rarely one of them. "You don't think I was always some grinning specter in a suit, do you?" he asked, reaching for his hat. "Why, I once walked the earth like a pestilence, trading for livestock and precious metals as often as I did for talent. Why, I could charm the most skinflint musicians and the hardest-nosed orators in any village, and usually leave them weeping once I'd left town." "Yeah," said Lucifer, "but this is the South. They've been writing songs about deals with the devil since they could hold a fiddle. They'll see you coming a mile away." Mr. Sereph had laughed and shook his head. "Tell Miss Juliet I said hello, and enjoy your lunch. Make sure you meet her at the diner, however. My sister will probably eat you alive if she sees you lurking around her office." Lucifer smiled and thanked him, but now that he was standing out here in the pig pen, looking at a large, muddy creature that seemed to be more talented at fly flicking than dancing, he wished he had let the young man go about it. It had been... how long? How long had it been since he'd stood in a pig pen? 100 years? 200? Time was funny, but it seemed more honest than his usual work. Mr. Sereph, Serre Olagrandor, in those days, had been a trader of livestock and other sundries as he looked for real talent. The local children had called him Sari Clanker because of all the bottles. He had stored the talent in bottles back then, because it was easier to transport than books. In those days, people weren't as fond of books as they were potions and miracles, and Mr. Sereph had reinvented himself many times over the years. "Well," the man said, hooking his thumbs into his overalls, "in his day, Wilbur was the best dancing pig in 5 states. He went town to town with the fair, entertaining people and making them smile. 'Wilbur!' he yelled, and the pig flicked his ears and seemed to look up. 'Show the man how you do.' That really isn't..." But then he turned his head and noticed that the man had picked up a fiddle from the nearby stump. Did he just Leave it here? Mr. Sereph wondered. When he struck up a tune, the pig jumped up like he was on fire. He started shuffling around, left foot up, right foot up, shimmying and dancing like a disco queen in a mud puddle. Mr. Sereph had to give it to the little oinker. He was really going for it. He could see little ripples in the mud that Wilbur had been sleeping in, and it was likely the most energetic the pig had ever been. The problem, however, became apparent pretty quickly. Wilbur was a fine dancer, but every time he came down on his back left leg, the pig grunted and jumped visibly. Mr. Sereph looked at the leg critically and could see a slight twist to the extremity. It was probably a break, but Mr. Sereph thought it might be just how the pig's back leg was growing, due to lifestyle, diet, or 100 other things. When it finished its dance, Mr. Sereph nodded, clapping a few times as he turned back to Mr. Manderly. Very impressive, but I don't know how much longer he's going to be able to do that. Looks like that back leg is paining him some. The smile slipped off the farmer's face, but he hid it well as he put down the fiddle. He come down wrong on it last year when he was stepping off a cattle car. Doctors say it likely won't heal right, and eventually it'll make it so he can't walk no more. Doctor says if he'd stop dancing, then he might be able to walk on it for the rest of his life, but Wilbur loves to dance, and I can't force him to stop on his own. That's why I called you, Mr. Sereph. Mr. Manderly led him back to the porch and offered him a rocker and a glass of sweet tea. Mr. Sereph accepted the chair, but declined the tea. It had been sitting out like it was waiting for them, and he could see several flies doing the backstroke in it. Mr. Manderly didn't see them, or he didn't care. Mr. Sereph tried not to wince as he drained half the glass and most of the flies, belching loudly before going on. I hear people tell that you can take talent away. They say that when you take it, it's gone, and they never go back to it. That's what I want for Wilbur. I tried just not playing, but Wilbur, he gets so sad without his dancing. Yeah, I can tell he does. Sometimes I come to see him and he looks up at me like he's saying, "Come on, Charlie, saw that fiddle just one more time for me." I don't want him to suffer, but I don't want him to do himself mischief neither. Can you help me, Mr. Sereph? Mr. Sereph took a deep breath and plastered his best smile back into place. I believe so. I don't know what I'd be able to offer you in compensation until it's done, but Mr. Manderly cut him off with a wave of his meaty hand. I don't want no money. If it makes Wilbur not hurt himself, then it's worth it to me. Mr. Sereph nodded and rose from his rocker. Then there's one thing I need from you. Name it, said Mr. Manderly, before rising ponderously from his own chair. I need you to loan me your fiddle, just for a little while, he said, and he saw the look of piggish greed on the man's face. I need it to draw out the talent. No one but me has played that fiddle since my daddy died, he half growled, reaching down to finish off the glass of tea in one swig. You promise not to break it? I will be very gentle, Mr. Sereph promised, stepping back towards the hog pen. My father insisted that all his children play an instrument. My sister plays the cello, though I've never heard it. My older brother plays the lyre, though sometimes it seems to play him. Mr. Sereph bent down and picked up the fiddle, marveling at its craftsmanship as he drew the bow across it. It was marvelous, something that had likely been passed down through the generations, and he understood the man's trepidation about giving it to him. This was a work of art, and he couldn't imagine anyone just leaving it out here on a stump. If there was anything here with power, it was probably the fiddle, and he had a definite itch to play it. Me personally, I like the classics. I liked all the stories of my uncle and his fiddle, so I decided to take it up too. It served me well over the years." Mr. Sereph took a bottle from his pocket, a simple thing with a rubber stopper, and set it on the fence post of the hog pen. Wilbur looked up when he saw the fiddle and seemed to wag his little tail. Even injured, it was clear that Mr. Manderly had the right of it. Wilbur loved to dance, and if they didn't get the talent out of him, he'd dance himself into a slaughterhouse or a string of sausages. Wilbur shivered when Mr. Sereph struck a long note on the fiddle. He began with something familiar, something by Chopin or Mozart maybe, and then began to speed up as he grew bolder. He was playing something fast and deep, the notes sawing through the trees like angry bees. Wilbur was dancing and jigging like his life depended on it. His little hooves were really working, and as Richard T. Sereph looked down, he was surprised to see that his little glass bottle had become a mason jar, and the jar was half full. Bum leg or not, Wilbur was moving like something his size had no business moving. He would have probably started dipping and kicking like a Cossack having a panic attack if his little legs would allow it. To Mr. Sereff's continued surprise, Mr. Manderly was also dancing. He was less coordinated, but no less enthusiastic than Wilbur. The man was sweating and wheezing as he did so, do-si-doing and promenading left and right with invisible partners, slapping his knee and bucking and winging. It was probably the most activity the man had shown in years, and the jar just kept filling. The mason jar became a tall boy, then a large thing for storing preserves or jam, then a jug like a moonshiner might drink from. Mr. Sereph wanted to stop playing, but he was quite unable. The music had a hold of him, too, and as the pig and its master danced and danced, Mr. Sereph sawed the fiddle and played and played. It had been lunchtime when he arrived, but as he played, the day just went on and on. The pig and the man were shaking and gasping. The old demon was sure that smoke would begin to rise from the instrument, and as the talent finally finished, he was left with a jug that looked gallons deep. It was a clay monstrosity that stood nearly a foot tall, but as Mr. Sereph picked it up, he could feel the weight as it shrank to something he could put into his pocket. Mr. Manderly lay in the mud of his dooryard. Wilbur was snoozing in the mud of his pen. But the old farmer snorted when Mr. Sereph stuffed the check into the front of his overalls. "No, sir," he wheezed. "I said I didn't need—" "Mr. Manderly, your pig gave me more talent than a troupe of backup dancers. You can cash that check, burn it, or blow your nose with it. But talent like that requires payment. I've doubled it also, because I wish to purchase your fiddle. It's a marvel, and I don't think you'll need it anymore." He expected the old farmer to argue, but instead, he just nodded. Unbeknownst to him, Mr. Manderly had given him his fiddle-playing talent as well. It hadn't been much, a squiddle of raw talent, but it would mean his fiddling days were done. Mr. Sereph looked at the instrument tucked under his arm. He liked the way it felt. He liked the way it sounded, and it would be wasted here with no one to play it. "Have a good evening, Mr. Manderly," he said, taking his leave as the pig and the owner slipped back into unconsciousness. So much talent from a farm animal, Mr. Sereph reflected. Kashmir was full of surprises. Good evening, everyone. It's me, Dr. Plague. Thank you so much for joining us for tonight's show. If you think you might like a little more spooky in your life, then please feel free to click on one of the videos we have up here. Maybe look at one of the playlists if you're trying to get caught up. I know, there's so many videos on the channel, so many series that are going at the same time. Sometimes you just need a little refresher course, and I gotta say, I always enjoy the views. If you're not subscribed, feel free to hit that subscribe button. Maybe hit the bell so you don't miss anything. We upload a lot on this channel, so you won't want to miss a single story as they come out. If you'd like to support the channel, you can click on the Amazon link down there. There's quite a few books in my Amazon account. You can have a look, and if you'd like a signed copy, get up with me through email, and I'll be happy to work something out with you. Also, there's links to my Patreon, and you can become a member on the channel if you'd like your spooky a little bit early. Patrons and members on the $5 tier get their videos 12 hours early. That's in the morning, as opposed to in the evening. Patrons at the $10 level also get a signed copy of my book anytime I write one. Speaking of my patrons, you should see them appearing right now. Just wanted to take a minute to say how much I appreciate all of you. Patrons, subscribers, however you give to the channel. I really appreciate everything you do, and it truly touches me that you have chosen to support the channel in this way. Well, that's enough for now. Till next time, Dr. Plague, signing off. Have a wonderful evening.